February, Mr. Greenblatt became a partner at Israeli venture capital firm Our Crowd, which will focus on creating what he calls a Middle East 2.0, building economic bridges between Israel and its Arab neighbors. It's my honor to introduce to you the Honorable Jason Greenblatt.
Thank you very much for that introduction. It's an honor to be here with all of you. The Kushner School has a special place in my heart. Not only some of my relatives have gone there, but I'm a big fan of the Kushner and Orbach families. All of you know I've worked very closely with Jared Kushner at the White House, so I'm really pleased to be here with you. I thought what I would do in the short time that I have is spend just a few minutes speaking and then really turn it over to you for questions you may have. I'd much rather answer questions that are on your mind rather than just speaking too much. So first I'll say, I hope everybody is well and healthy and safe, and to the extent you have loved ones or friends suffering from the illness, I wish them in mind so that they can be safe and healthy and recuperate. These are definitely, stressful times and worrying times, and I hope that you are learning a lot from your teachers, your BAM, your families, your parents. It's a good time to be at home with your families and try to have more family time than you ordinarily might have. One of the upsides for me to being in this situation is I have all 6 kids under one roof, which is not normal for our family now that we have 3 kids in college. Certainly wasn't normal for our family when I was living in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. Having family meals other than on Shabbat was a rare privilege, and now we've had family dinners, partial family breakfasts, and even the occasional lunch where I get to sneak away from the Zoom calls that I find myself on all day, multiple times a week, so it's really great. I'll spend a little bit of time speaking about my work at the White House. I was there for nearly 3 years working on the U.S.-Israel relationship, which I think under this administration, through the efforts of President Trump, Jared Kushner, myself, Ambassador David Friedman, Secretary Pompeo, and so many others, has been strengthened beyond any other administration. I think the president gets tremendous credit for all the many things he did for Israel, starting from the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. For those of you who don't know, for the law, but there was an out, and it was a national security out. If the president felt that doing this would endanger U.S. national security, they did not have to move forward with honoring that law. I'm not here to pass judgment on the prior presidents. I wasn't in the room when they went through the analysis of what to do, but I will tell you that President Trump deserves enormous credit for honoring his promise. I was in the room for many of those discussions. There was tremendous pressure on him from all around the world not to do it, but I think we can easily see that it was the right decision. It was a historic and bold and courageous decision. The same thing with the move of the U.S. Embassy in May of 2018. Recognizing that the Golan Heights should be under Israeli sovereignty was critical for Israel's security, and so many other things that he and the administration had done under his leadership, I think really dramatically strengthened the U.S.-Israel relationship. I was also one of the chief architects, together with Jared and David Friedman, for the peace plan, the Peace to Prosperity vision that the president released earlier this year for peace between Israel and the Palestinians and Israel and the Arab. For anybody who follows this, we all understand that it's a very, very complex, challenging thing to get through. And right now, until Israel has a government and until we pass this corona crisis, it's unlikely to be any movement on that. But I'm hopeful. I believe we put down a plan that is realistic and implementable. It is definitely a plan that is far different from what diplomats have worked on over the past decades, but we all have to recognize that none of those plans had worked. None of those plans were realistic. It is definitely different than what the Palestinian leadership has promised the Palestinians over the decades, but just because you promise something doesn't mean you're going to get it. And just because you aspire to something doesn't mean that you're entitled to it. And my hope is that it gets traction, and time will tell. With that, I really would like to turn over the floor to you to hear what your questions might be. So thank you.
Thank you so much. The first question I think we have is, well, first of all, if everybody could please mute their volume. Oh, that's much better. Josh Shapiro, are you on this?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Josh.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your day for coming here. I think we all truly value this. Also, my question is, although you're not in office although you're not like serving the president anymore, do you foresee any possible developments in the deal of the century, whether it be potential Arab nations that could possibly mediate a deal, warming up to the idea of Israel and this whole process? And in general, do you foresee any changes in the near future? Let's say the Palestinian leadership sitting down at the table, negotiating table. Yeah, do you foresee any new development happening in the near future?
Thanks, Josh. It's a great question. I'll tell you, when I started on my first trip to Jordan, I went to the Arab League Summit where all of the Arab countries gathered together, and I met all of the foreign ministers one-on-one. And I was surprised at how much we agreed on so many things about Israel and so many things about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I can't get into any level of detail, but I left the room, for example, with one major Arab country's foreign minister thinking, how is it possible that I've never met anybody from this country before, and I'm leaving the room thinking that I agree with about 97% of what he said. Most of the time in the first few months, whenever the Arab countries would talk about Israel, they would whisper it. It would always be Israel, Israel. And by the time we left, we saw some very dramatic changes. You saw Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting the late Sultan of Oman. You heard the Hatikva being sung in Abu Dhabi, an Israeli Special Olympics team competing in Abu Dhabi, the foreign minister of Bahrain making very forward comments about Israel. A lot changed over this 3 years, largely due to the efforts of President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and each of the Arab leaders in the region. But it is a concept that we need to be patient about. There are decades of conflict and teachings and so many issues that have arisen between Israel and its Arab neighbors and Israel and the Palestinians. So we have to be patient. I'm definitely optimistic. We can't look at this one pocket of time, the immediate rejection of the peace to prosperity vision, the coronavirus now that's going to slow things down, the Israeli government, multiple elections, and today there's some news about the potential of a unity government, which is very promising if it happens. So we can't, this is a 70-year-old conflict, perhaps even greater than that, and we can't let these few months derail the process or allow us to lose hope. The answer is, if we're patient and realistic, I think there could be more and more progress, and eventually a peace agreement that could work for both sides and for the region itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joey Ostroff, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
So, how do you think all of the Trump accomplishments with Israel will play out under a Democratic president, if one gets elected?
Well, I like to think he's going to get elected, but that's okay. I think it's going to depend on who gets elected. I think that in the unlikely case that Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee, I think he's been pretty clear that he very much disliked most of our policies. And I think if he tries to undo the many things that we did for Israel, he's going to find strong headwinds from Congress, because Israel, although Israel remains a bipartisan issue, it's not as easy as it once was. But I think it has remained a bipartisan issue, and it must remain a bipartisan issue. And I think Bernie Sanders may find himself swimming upstream and not able to undo the many things that we did. But it is a danger, and it's a danger we shouldn't take lightly. I don't know enough about Biden's policies to be able to answer that question with accuracy. I don't think he has been as revealing yet as far as where he would go on some of these things. But I think what I want to do to answer your question a little bit more broadly is impress upon all of you who are listening here and impress upon your friends. Without all of you and your parents and all of us being very active in the political space, we could be in danger of losing many important gains. So it's essential that everybody be extraordinarily active on every type of Israel advocacy that you could get your hands on, whether it's AIPAC, NORPAC, anything that you could do to help the state of Israel, help the relationship between the US and Israel is really, really important. And I say this having spent nearly 3 years at the White House. When I was your age, I was not an active political person. I wasn't even active perhaps 5 and 10 years ago, to be honest. And I realized that that was a tremendous mistake on my part. And I encourage my kids and all of my neighbors to be more and more active. We're living in a very unique time, a very dangerous time for Israel. And the more we get out there and use our voices and our passion and our strength, the better off everybody will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have time for another question or two?
Sure.
Okay, great. Rowie Novick, are you there? Rowie?
Yes, hello. I'd like to start off with thanking you for coming to speak to us today, and also all that you've done in the 3 years that you worked in the Trump administration to forward U.S. and Israel relations. It's been evident that it's been very successful. Okay, my question is, if the Palestinians were to continue to reject the Trump peace plan, what would you advise either the current administration or a future administration if it were to change in order to jumpstart and get the peace talks and get everyone to come to the talking table? And would there be any hope if this particular plan were to fail?
So I'll answer the question with what I told the administration when I was there, what I've told the Palestinian leadership, what I've told just about every Arab country and the United Nations and anyone else who's been involved in the space. We did things differently. In the past, people used to give rewards to the Palestinian side to come to the table. They were very interested in what they call confidence building measures. And I'm not saying that that wasn't the right approach at the time, but it clearly didn't work. We are not in the business of paying the Palestinians something to come to the table. They have an opportunity now to have something that can be as widely and hugely successful as the state of Israel has created under very trying circumstances. If they want to help their people, then they have to come to the table and negotiate as hard as they want to see if they could get to the end of the tunnel. But I don't think it is worthwhile to try to encourage them to come to the table by giving them all sorts of goodies, because that's been tried before and it failed. The goodies should be what this peace to prosperity vision can lead to for the Palestinian people. The other thing that's important to keep sight of is that there are right now two Palestinian leaderships, and very few people remember to discuss that. There's the Palestinian leadership in Ramallah, which governs portions of what some people call the West Bank, what I prefer to call Judea and Samaria, and what should never be called occupied Palestinian territory, because that is a mislabel. But then there's also the brutal terrorist regime Hamas that rules and subjugates and causes tremendous suffering for 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. Unless and until the Palestinian leadership gets its act together and we have one voice to represent the Palestinian people, it is very complicated and challenging to get this deal done. But that doesn't mean we can't try. When you're a diplomat, you have to have optimism and hope. You also have to be a realist, and that's the way you have to approach problem sets like this. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you're on a very, you have a lot to do, and you took your time. You took the time out of your busy schedule today, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everything that you do on behalf of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Are there any advice you'd like to give the students in conclusion?
Sure. I'll just close by telling you what I tell my kids all the time. You're the next generation of leaders. My generation, wants to be able to count on you as good Americans, as good Jews. You know, you can bring tremendous change to the world. You could bring tremendous change to us here. So take your responsibility seriously. Don't take anything lightly. You know, you can bring a lot to us. And I look forward to watching the contributions that the next generation, including all of you, will bring to the Jewish community, to America, to Israel, and to the world. And the second thing is just, I hope you all stay safe. Keep the recommendations of the CDC and the government. Take them seriously. Be well, be safe. Connect with your families, connect with your friends, check in on people who might need checking in on, especially elderly neighbors and isolated neighbors, to be sure that they're well. And thank you very much for tuning in and for listening. Take care.
Thank you so much for coming today. We wish you all the best. All the best.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for coming.